Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and start the meeting? Are you going to say, Sarah?
No, I haven't been in a while, as well.
Okay, sure. Let's see. There's Cody. Okay, hi, Cody. So this is supposed to be a hybrid meeting, and it's very hybrid. I'm the only one here. Well, Sarah and I are the only ones here at Town Hall.
Good morning.
Maybe somebody else will crop up. I don't know if Nancy, Lois is excused, and Eric Obenauer, who is our newest member, is also excused. And I had thought Nancy Goodnow might be back in town, but maybe not. And also, I haven't heard from Ray. I don't know what's going on with him. So let's proceed as if this is the full group. I guess we'll continue to have these meetings as hybrid and see if anybody else is inclined to do it in person, and if not, we'll just go back to all Zoom. Gil Smith, who has been a member, has decided that he'd like to retire from the team, so we extend his thanks to him. In the past month, Richard and I have done documentation on our photo documentation on 2 properties that are soon to be demolished, and I thought I'd just share photos of them so you know what they are. Or one of them. Okay, now can you share the screen?
It's already
sort of shared. Okay, this is the one at 4799 Westlake Road. It's called the Mathers House, after the most recent resident, and it was purchased by the owner next door, who intends to demolish it. And yeah, can you move that over to the other side so you can see the whole thing?
They can, it's just us.
Oh, okay. There we go. So this house probably was built built pre-1900 is my guess anyway. It's quite small. This is the long dimension, and the short dimension is only maybe 15 feet or less, somewhere in the range of 12 to 15 feet. The other one is at, I don't remember the number exactly, but it's on North Menteith Drive, and it is the former boathouse for a lakefront resort or vacation hotel property called the Walter Rita, and later on it was called the Cottonwoods. And that one, both of these have very well preserved interiors, not really changed a whole heck of a lot from the time that, maybe that's leaf home, not very, with a lot of preserved interior material from the early days. So we got some great photographs of both the exterior and the interior of both of these. They're both coming down to make room for a new, larger house. And Leaf will, once we get him some audio from him, Leaf is going to talk about this particular one and some ideas he has and concepts he's working on for relocating this house rather than demolishing it. So that's exciting. All right, next thing on the agenda, newsletter articles. Leaf did one for October about the academy section of town. I don't really have anything, on the back burner for the next couple of months, so I'll sort of toss that out and see if anybody would like to write something. Let's see, Cody, you're on there, right? No, let's see, yeah. Would you like to take an opportunity here to write something and sort of introduce yourself to the community?
Yeah, I can do that. When would you like the article by, and how long should it be?
The due date is, these come out every month, around the first of the month. Sarah, who's next to me here, is the editor and compiler. It's just digital. The due date is usually the last Friday of the month, is that right?
Well, we're trying to send them out close to the first, but we typically send them on Fridays. So, in November, that first Friday of the month is, I think, like the 6th or something like that. So I'm probably gonna ask for, I'll send out an email and I'll include you on it, Cody.
Okay.
That is, when I request content, and I think that's, sorry, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but I think I'm gonna have it, due, not the very last week in October, but the week before, probably the Friday. I think it might be the 22nd or something like that.
Yeah, so the 22nd would be the second to last Friday.
Yeah, because if I can send it before Halloween, I will, but it's entirely likely that it won't go out till that following week. But I'll send an email in the next week or two with a due date. And length is not, we don't really restrict the length. Lee can tell you, well, I'll tell you because he can't tell us right now, but if you have something that's fairly substantial, what we can do is we can include like a teaser, like 500 words or something in the newsletter, and then the full article gets uploaded to the website so people can read the first about a page worth, and then, read more, could be at the bottom, and then they could click. Because we had an article that Leaf wrote that was about 8 pages long, so I only included the first page in the newsletter, and then I stuck the rest on the website for people to click through. Otherwise, if it's just like a 1-page-ish or 2-page-ish length, it just goes on the newsletter, and it's digital, so it scrolls. It's one long scrolling newsletter. So we use MailChimp to send it out. So we like pictures. Pictures are always good. But yeah, so you're not really limited. It's just if it's longer, we present it a little bit differently.
Yeah, sounds good.
I think, Cody, from your particular perspective, it would be good to say something to town residents about your impressions of having lived here for, 4 or 5 months, and how local history sort of fits into the community, maybe in comparison with other places you've lived or whatever.
Yeah, so my thought is really, kind of that brief introduction to myself, what has happened here at the museum in the last couple of months, and kind of thinking about what the future is for the museum and how that should positively impact the town of Canandaigua.
Oh, that sounds great. And if you need to slip into November, then we get into Thanksgiving week. So are you going to try to do it after Thanksgiving, or send it out the day after Thanksgiving? No, you wouldn't do that, right? Or would you?
No, for the December article, or for this December newsletter, it'll come out, right the very beginning of December.
So that would be not Thanksgiving weekend, but the following weekend.
Yeah, I'm not sending it by Thanksgiving, no, it'll go probably after that.
Okay, so maybe early the week of Thanksgiving would be the.
I don't have a calendar, I can't tell you the due date.
No, I'm just, trying to work with it. Is it before Thanksgiving or after Thanksgiving?
I
don't know, okay, that's fine.
I can't think of what the dates are.
Okay, so let's aim for doing it in October. Okay, ongoing projects. Well, we do need another one, so if anybody can think of another subject to work on, maybe for the December one, let me know. So, on to park panels. I had a couple of things I said I would do at the last meeting, and I'm sorry to say I haven't gotten to them. So I haven't really made much of any progress on this project, other than that I did get Edith Davey to agree to develop something about the natural history, and she has sent me a draft of it. It's a, nothing really be able to see that, but it's a bunch of panels about different animals a millipede, a butterfly, a salamander, blue jay, chipmunk, squirrel, coon, and red fox, and a sentence or two about each one, which is a great starting point. I was hoping to be able to tailor it more specifically to Onondaga Park itself and different parts of the park, but I'll work with Edith on seeing if we can refine this. So anyway, we have a draft one on one of the panels. And Sarah, did we ever get the agreement with the Museum and Science Center to use those photos? Remember, they said yes, but then they gave a written.
They gave us
contract
something, and I'm pretty sure Doug signed it, and I guess it was something I would have emailed back, but I didn't hear from them after that.
So could you check and see, make sure because I never got anything more either. But anyway, they have given us permission on, I think, 6 different historic images of Onondaga Park from the 20s, maybe, and there are some other ones from sort of mid-20th century that might be suitable to use. So those are going to be the basis for the panel about local history. But that's as far as I've gotten on that one. And then the third one, as we discussed last time, the map of the park has to be on hold until we find out what the changes are in the trails. And there was supposed to be a parks master plan meeting about Onondaga Park in September, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that happened, or did it?
No, it got postponed, so they will be meeting, they usually meet the last Wednesday of the month, so they'll be meeting in a few weeks for their October meeting, and they are specifically focusing that meeting on Onondaga and the mapping that MRB is doing. Because we recently had the property surveyed, and some of the trails at Onondaga are not actually on Onondaga property, they're veering off to neighboring properties, so we have to redo some of our trails to move them. And MRB is gonna make us a new map once all of that is finished. I don't know what the timeline is, but when they meet at the end of October, I think we'll get a better idea of that.
So could you make sure that I know about when that meeting is? Because I intended to go to that when I was back in August, and that didn't happen, and then September didn't happen, and so hopefully October will happen. But our thought was, we can't make that last map until, that last panel until the map is done. But possibly we could get the other ones done in time to have them printed this year and use this year's budget money for it. So I think we'll still aim for that, but I'm not sure if it'll work out or not. Okay, town hall map. Richard, any progress on that?
Okay, and after spending several hours trying to work with a couple of maps that have plot designations or ownership designations spreading out beyond the town of Canandaigua boundaries, I've decided to approach those couple of maps differently. Instead of trying to have a hard cutoff at the boundary like the other ones are, I'm going to feather those instead, so I don't have to go crazy trying to move the ownership designations within the boundaries like I've tried. It just doesn't work out too well. So by feathering it beyond the border, it'll sort of, it gives enough space there so you can see the name, but it's not obtrusive as far as having the extra area beyond it. So hopefully I'll get back onto that. I've spent some time, the last couple of weeks on that, but hopefully I'll get back on that next week and have something to show in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
The format's going to be a little bit different than I think we originally wanted to go with 24 by 36, but I think it may be a little shorter than that. I'm not sure yet until it actually, I have that feathering there and I put a frame around it and everything else. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Well, the exact dimensions I think can be flexible because we're not talking about a physical frame. We're talking about just
It-
mounting it.
Yeah,
directly.
well, actually, not the frame, the mat. It's going to be a virtual, not a virtual, but a pseudo mat, like I did for the, exactly, Sarah. Yeah, like that.
And then the material that's printed on will be thick enough that it'll be stiff and it won't need a frame or glass.
Right.
Go directly on.
Oh, okay.
So,
That saves us a step.
yeah, so that'll be great, and, we'll still assume that that will be a budget item for this year, and we'll try to complete it by the end of the year.
Yep.
Okay, so how are you coming with Academy Cemetery?
Okay, hopefully next week I'll be able to print out the sections of the cemetery. We've been back there to designate the stones. I still have to finish the computer work on those as far as actually substituting the ones we marked on the unit before. I have to substitute those with the new designations. And hopefully I'll have all that done by next week, so I can section it off, so we can have a team go out there in the following week or weeks in order to take down names and verify the DNR list.
Okay, that would be great. I think, why don't we keep an eye on the weather and try to pick a couple of days that look like suitable weather, and give the whole team a, several days notice anyway of when it's gonna happen. So hopefully we'll get at least, 4 or 5 people to help do that verification stage.
Yeah, Donna and I went out a couple times, and one of the times we went out, it was mid-afternoon. We figured that by that time the grass would be dry and everything else. Well, mid-afternoon is not a good time as it gets later, because the bugs really come out. So it'd be better to have it late morning and just wear weatherproof shoes.
Yeah, well, October is often a good, if you get the right day, it's perfect weather for this sort of thing. And I think Lois would be glad to help, and probably several other team members would like to have an activity other than just, sitting in front of the computer and talking. So
Right. Yeah.
let's aim for sometime around the middle of October.
That sounds good. Yep, we'll have it all set to go by, like I said, probably by the end of next week or halfway through the following week, but we should be in good shape.
Okay, and I had one idea, since it looks like we won't be using all of our budget money for the projects we've already identified, but I thought possibly it would make sense to spend money on buying some small number signs that we could put on the fence along the old Westlake Road side, so that, that would just be the row numbers. So if a person, eventually we will have a map that identifies every grave by its row number. But there are something like 30, 32 rows, right? There are a lot of rows.
There are a lot of rows.
But the rows are fairly distinct.
Yeah, unlike the other cemetery.
Hard to find, but
Yeah.
if somebody looks at our final published flyer, let's call it, about them, and they're looking for their ancestor, and they see, okay, this is my ancestor is number 16F. They're gonna have a hard time finding 16F, because they're gonna have to start at one end and count rows and stuff. If we had row numbers at the south end on the fence, because there's a chain link fence there, right? So we have something to mount them on. We could put the row numbers there, and then people would have that as an orientation to find the row.
Right.
And then they could just walk along the row to find the grave. So you can get these little, there are any number of styles and materials and so on for these little number plaques. They might be, let's say, 3 inches by 6 inches, or 2.5 by 5. I mean, you can get them all different sizes, all different materials. They could be printed plastic, they could be metal, they could be ceramic. I mean, if you look up number signs online, they're just hundreds, literally. So, and in terms of cost, I haven't really researched it, but I would imagine let's say if we need 30 of them,
or whatever, yeah.
yeah, 30, 35, whatever, and they're, can't be more than a few dollars each, I would think. So that's a matter of, a few $100s. Does that seem like a good investment? I mean, we could even buy more than that if we think that we might want to use them in other cemeteries also.
Well, we're gonna start off, if we do it in other cemeteries, we'd start off with one and go up from there. So we would much better to just get what we need for this cemetery and maybe a couple extra rows just in case they add on at the bottom end of it.
Right, right. I mean, think about Hun Cemetery, that only officially has, I think, 9, 10, 11 rows, something like
Yeah, but
that, although the
those
rows are
wander.
vague. But we do have a fence. We could mount numbers like that at Hun also, on the split rail fence. So maybe if we're buying them anyway, we could get a number of extras of numbers 1 through 12, let's say, just so we could do it there too.
Just something I thought of, if any of these numbers or other small items like this you're looking at happen to be an Amazon purchase, the town has a business account with Amazon that we can purchase through for stuff that might fall under that.
Okay.
And also, anything we do purchase online, we're tax exempt, so, you can purchase through me or,
So you just get.
Sarah? Sarah,
I'd like to add,
and Amazon has what they call Amazon Smile. So if you sign in through the Amazon Smile, a portion of the purchase can be donated to a nonprofit. So maybe the town has a nonprofit or several nonprofits that they promote. It could be like, I don't know if it could be a rotating donation or not, but at least a portion of the purchase goes to those. And you still
Yeah, I
have
don't
your same
know.
Amazon account number, but you just have to sign in as smile.amazon.com.
Yeah, I can
I'd like
ask.
to add, I'd like to add a couple of things with regard to Hun, Lucas, and Remington Route, if you're going to mark the rows. So now that I have audio, I can tell you that the formation of the cemetery committee is only awaiting the ordinance committee before it goes back to the town board. And that should happen this fall. But I would think with Remington, more with Hun, that rather than hang signs on the split rail fence, we may want to actually acquire the ground markers that are used in a lot of cemeteries to mark rows. And they are metallic and they're usually mounted on a stake, and they can either be mounted flush with the ground or they can be above grade. But I think with regards to Hun not having a chain link fence, that we might want to investigate a different method of marking those rows that's aesthetic with the split rail fence and the 18th, early 19th century headstones.
That makes sense.
I also, when you all are ready, I can give you some information on the Futterman Cottage, but I don't want to interrupt the agenda here.
Okay, well, yeah, the cemetery marker project is on the agenda a little bit later on, so let's go into it then. All right, well, let's hold off on the row marker business until we get a little more of a consensus. Maybe we can talk about it when we're out there at oh, sorry, this is Ray. Hold on.
Sarah, Linda, I think that what you
Right.
proposed for Academy is probably the right solution for Academy.
Oh, yeah, yes. Are you able to call in or to get online? You could. Did you try the email I sent last night that has a join meeting here, then you can click. Yeah, look for an email that came late in the day yesterday from me, and then one of the first link you can click on will be the one that should get you right into the meeting. Okay, bye. Sorry.
So, Richard, I'd like to add something to that conversation about Academy. You guys have, the work you've done is phenomenal, and you've got all those nice, fortunately, Academy makes sense, whereas HUN doesn't, because we have those massive gaps in the rows in HUN where we probably have people that are interred, but we don't have a stone. And, unless we did a ground penetrating radar survey, we wouldn't know really whether there's somebody there or not. We couldn't say categorically. I think the thing with HUN, the difference between HUN and Academy, I think HUN may actually be well served to have a sign that actually displays a map to the graves that people can literally reference as they're standing in the cemetery. It could be, if you've been to a Civil War battlefield lately, they have lots of plaques that are raised perhaps a few feet above grade, a couple of feet, 3 feet. And they usually kind of have graphic displays along with text. And I think something like that might really serve HUN well, so that as people are looking at it, they can orient right from the plaque to what they're seeing in front of them. But I think for Academy, I think that seems like the logical solution is to do as you're saying, and mount those row letters and numbers right on the fence, because that is a completely different layout and situation than a couple of our other cemeteries. It might also work at Sand Hill, as Sand Hill also is well laid out and has a fence that would lend itself well to mounting row markers. Those are just thoughts I'm having.
Leif, I didn't quite follow what you were saying about the digital information.
No, not digital, Sarah Linda. Actually having a sign, a plaque that's mounted in the cemetery at HUN.
The directory.
Yep, with a graphic display that shows where the graves are. And I've seen a very similar one done in New England, where they have an ancient burial ground that doesn't make sense. It's like HUN. It's kind of got holes, and it's what we might describe as a little haphazard. And the best way for visitors to orient to that cemetery was to literally have a sign that's at the front of the cemetery. They look in, as they're looking into the burial ground, they're looking at the map, and they can orient from that map to the stones they're looking at. I just think HUN it's kind of different that way. Academy and Sand Hill make a lot of sense. They're orderly.
So you're saying have a large version of the map which is in the flyer?
Yeah, something similar to that. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
obviously, if you're going to do something like that, I think Richard and Donna have proven themselves to be very good at figuring out how to make sense out of cemeteries. And Richard's a visual guy. He may have thoughts, that go far beyond my own on how that might work for HUN. But yeah, something like that.
That addresses the issue that somebody might show up there without a map, because we don't have an unlimited number of maps, and we don't distribute the maps at the cemetery. So
correct.
Having a physical sign there, would be a big step forward. Those interpretive signs tend to cost. It could easily be $1,000 by the time you included a foundation and a post and the whole mounting thing and the installation. It could be $2,000 depending on how big it is. But
correct.
So that's a significant budget item, but it is a good idea.
And that's, I
I
think
thought
that,
you were talking about the QR code idea that would allow you
no,
to
I
have
think
a
the QR code,
marker somewhere, and then from that, pull up a digital version on your phone of the map, and then that would allow you to move around. But not everybody is, I mean, more and more people are getting comfortable with that, but that's a much
I don't-
lower cost way of doing the same thing.
you're right, Sarah, the more and more are, I don't think this is a one or the other kind of solution. And those QR codes can be very inexpensive.
They're free.
Right,
Well-
so that might be a place to
Have the
start.
physical thing for you to-
There are free ones available, yeah. You know, you guys could work on a digital version of, so we have one for HUN, but for these maps, and then do it with a QR code that's put like temporarily on some sort of inexpensive sign, or like a, you know, like laminated sheet or something on site, and then, you know, look into the actual physical signs and budget them for the following year.
Yes, I agree with that.
QR code available sooner. I don't know, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's a worthy project, you just would have to budget for it.
Well, the cemeteries do already have a name sign on them.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not large, and maybe the QR code could be mounted on that sign. If you could get it printed on a weatherproof material and mounted on that sign, that would give people a start anyway. That would be a pretty inexpensive way of.
QR code's only going to be effective though if they have cell reception for, so they can access the information.
I agree with all of you, because I think it's all of the above. And I think what Sarah was speaking to is ideal, in that we could have a graphic display that's available, at the cemetery, that is not the permanent answer, but is an inexpensive but effective version that would serve us for short term. And the QR codes would also serve those who are more digitally savvy. The people that go to cemeteries, this is a broad statement, but I think it's easily borne out, tend to be older residents and visitors. We don't get as many young folks unless we have, which we haven't, a school visit. So the QR codes are hit and miss. It depends, because some people are very IT friendly and some aren't. Some want to actually have the brochure in their hand. They want to look at the sign. And I think we can do that. I think we can effectively do that and buy time to, have a better long-term solution that, as Sarah said, we build it into the budget. And maybe the cemetery committee, because there is a proposed budget that Doug and Katie and I put together for that cemetery committee when it receives full approval from the town board. And that budget does not include something for the sign, but it does include monies for grant writing. And so I think once that committee is formed, it's possible that they may decide that they want to write some grants for signage for HUN, for Lucas, wherever it is that they determine, it will do the most. So I think Sarah's I nailed it. I think we can do all of the above, and it's within the budget to do all of the above right now and build for the future.
If I may say, I agree with Leaf. I think that all of the above is really the answer, but then you have to kind of start thinking about, what goes on the sign versus what goes on pamphlets or on the QR codes. So I really liked the idea of having the sign be a layout of the cemetery, but then I was thinking, if we get a QR code, it might be more interesting to put more textual information on a sign and make that sign smaller, right? And then once people go to that QR code or the pamphlet, then they can really navigate through the cemetery with their phones or with the pamphlet. So that textual stuff, it makes people realize that there's something there. It grabs the attention. And then with the pamphlet or the phone, it will help them to actually walk through and learn more about the site itself.
And that's exactly where, since I've been working on HUN and the formation of the cemetery committee, you're exactly right, Cody. And my dream is not, let me preface that by saying, what I think is just what I think. And I don't want to force my opinions, but my dream, if I was king of the world, would be that those cemeteries would become outdoor museums with particular emphasis on HUN, because it has high visibility, accessibility, parking, and it is one of our oldest burial grounds. There are other individual graves at some of the other cemeteries that are in the same era, but it is our oldest burial ground by numbers of early residents that are interred there. I think it's a museum. It's an outdoor museum.
Leaf, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, though, I'll reiterate what I said earlier. All that sounds great and everything else, but it's all going to be dependent upon whether people can actually get a signal at the cemetery. I mean, some people.
No, I understand what you're saying, Richard. I don't, and I'm just talking off the top of my head too. And you're right. Yeah. There's those. That's why there's all those hurdles that I think you're right. We need to see where we're at with signals. We need to find. I mean, obviously, you're right. There's no point in putting a QR code on there if you can't get a signal.
I'm going forward. Yes, the young people of today will be the old people tomorrow, and they'll certainly be familiar with how to deal with technology versus the people today that are in the 70s, 80s, 90s. That the last thing they want to do is have to struggle with a modern day VCR, so to speak. Navigating around it. So it's still going to be a lot to deal with. Today's generation, older generation, is going to be more paper-based, I would think, than technology-based. Going forward, yes, it's a great idea, but we have to look at the here and now too.
Well, and that's it. I think we're in a transitional era.
Yep. And
I'm beating a dead horse. Our users right now, I do think, tend to be, and that's why I like signs and brochures. I think that you didn't add my age in there, Richard, but I'll tell you what, I like hard copy myself.
Well, I still do
far
too.
Prefer something in my hand.
I'm also a fan of an actual sign with a diagram or map or something on site with QR code that would take them somewhere where they could see that online, but also read about it. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And also,
what Cody was saying, if we had
our website, is available. We can create a page for each cemetery with visuals and graphics and images and text that the QR code could go to.
Yep.
I mean, don't forget, you guys have a website. It can grow. You give me content, I'll make a page.
And I think, if there's a signal, and Richard, I live in the hole over on Rozier Road, where we also drop the signal. I think it's part of the same hole that probably, goes all along Woolhouse and 32. There's, the QR code that takes you to the website. What I like about that, and this is now I'm going astray, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this, is that I do want to be able to explore the lives of those residents that are interred there. If I was king of the world, it would be an outdoor museum. We would interpret Canandaigua, early Canandaigua, through the graves of those people and the lives they lived, and our visitors to that cemetery would grow, and we would have, a wonderful little place for them to take in the history and maybe relax. It's sort of I guess we're kind of hoping it's a build it and they will come kind of scenario, but I think you're all right. I think everybody's right about how we do this because it is transitional.
This has been a great discussion about the cemeteries generally, and I think Leaf has done some good work. He alluded to this cemetery committee idea, which he's working on and has already explored with the town board, and hopefully that will be a mechanism for bringing more attention to the cemeteries and bringing more budget to the cemeteries for a number of things, including repair of the headstones, which is something that we all are acutely aware of. Anybody's acutely aware of if they just walk for 30 seconds into one of the cemeteries. They realize that's an issue that has needs some attention and money. So let's set this one aside for now and keep going through the agenda, because we'll be back to it with some more about the headstone repairs. First of all, just a quick update about the Historic Resources Survey. I'm afraid I don't have much to report. I have had one communication with Katie Como. She's working on the sort of outline and background this month. We talked last month about developing some committees, or at least identifying people who could help her out with further information on different sections of the town. And I took on the lakefront part of that, but I haven't really made any progress in contacting those people, but I'll give it another try during October. And Nancy was the one who was going to be working on Cheshire, and she's been out of town, so hopefully that can happen in October also. So not much to report other than that for now, but it is proceeding. So in terms of new business, that we've got two things to talk about. One, and Leaf is kind of in the middle of both of them. One of them is repair of headstones, and the other one is this house that's on the screen, the Mathers house. Leaf has gone a certain way towards a project that would involve saving this house from demolition and relocating it. So Leaf, I'll turn it over to you to cover these two things, but let's try to cover both of them within a period of about,
We have 10 minutes left, so I'm going to try to do this really quick, Sarah Linda. So
Okay.
Cemeteries is easy. Peter Ellison has been out to Hun Cemetery at least 3 times, and I met with Peter twice over the last 2 weeks, along with other folks. So Peter is doing great work at Hun, saving our stones from complete degradation. There are old repairs that predate most of us and our involvement that were done with epoxy. Peter does not use epoxy resins. He uses mortar products that are designed for that. And his work looks really nice. So if you get a chance to stop at Hun, take a look, you will find the work. You'll see it. The other thing we did is we had a clinic with him last Wednesday and yesterday. Yesterday's clinic, and this is why I didn't go into length, Sarah Linda, in my email to you. We had moved that one to Bristol because Bristol and Hun share families that are interred, and the town of Bristol has a much larger problem even than we do with their cemetery. So it was a great place for Peter to go with us and talk about all the myriad things that can be done to preserve and save headstones. So we did a lot of learning over the last 2 Wednesdays, and he has done great good work in Hun. We did not pay him to do Remington Root or Lucas. Kate Silverstrom and I are going to acquire materials in the very near future, probably next week. And with our newfound knowledge, we are going to attempt to do some good work to slow the degradation of the stones at Lucas and Remington Route. So, and Richard and Donna, if you have stones there that you think I could help by sealing them from moisture and ice that will build up as a result of the moisture, I'd be glad to go up there and do that too.
Okay, well,
It's a triage kind of thing.
okay, I'll make one comment about the stones, and it's more directed toward the people that or person that does the mowing. When Don and I were at Academy, I was really taken back by the clumps of grass there, but more importantly, how many stones have been knocked off of their designated positions. And I suspect it's because of the lawnmower that when they whip through that cemetery.
Richard, I had the same problem over at Hun.
Yeah, I
if
know,
you
but I mean,
would-
I'm commenting the fact that this has got to be pointed out to the people that are doing the mowing, and that they take more care on it. Otherwise, there are going to be a lot more stones that have to be
Right.
repaired in the future.
So what I was going to say to that is, we had a problem at Hun that I did see, and I know what you're talking about because I've cleaned some of the grass off the stones at Academy myself when I was pulling flags. It would be helpful if you would say something to Lindsay Prairie, who's Parks and Rec at the town hall. Lindsay is acutely aware of what is going on, and I think it's time for us to get a new contract mowing service, because I agree, they're not being safe. They're using string cutters to do some of the close-up work, and that's really hard on those the old bluestone headstones, because it's slate, and it's not good for some of the marbles either because they're soft, and then they use those zero-turn mowers, and if they pivot, and we had a stone that was actually broken at Hun by the mowers. Fortunately, I had been at Hun the day before, and I drove by it the day after, and I went straight to Lindsay and I said, hey, we are freshly mowed and there is a broken stone. So we need to bring that to her attention, and that needs to stop, and we need to get a new mower. If you're seeing that there, then it's not acceptable. So that's my report on headstones. And I gave you a brief on where we're at with the cemetery committee. So we're getting on close to 10 o'clock. I don't want to take everybody's time. So the Futterman Cottage, yeah.
Hang on a second, before you go on to that, I think this is an important point about the mowing and maintenance. I wonder if there's a document we could find along the lines of best practices for lawn maintenance within historic cemeteries.
I'm sure there is.
I want to check up in Mount Hope.
Find that and pass that along to Doug and to Lindsay, so that when the next time they let a contract or they do a request for proposals for mowing in the cemeteries, it will reflect that document that identifies what we ought to be doing to protect the stones.
That's great, Sarah Linda. I agree. And
So we're releasing an RFP this month for mowing for next year. So if that's something we want to include in that, if you can get that to me or Lindsay Frary really quickly,
and it would be good it would be best if you had it as an email as well, correct, Sarah?
Yeah, I don't want it on paper.
Yeah.
Cody, do you have any suggestions about where we could go? There is the National Trust for Historic Preservation, the National Park Service has a series of preservation briefs. You're probably familiar with them, about all different topics, and one of them is about historic cemeteries, and it has a couple of pages about the issues of lawn maintenance and how damaging it often is. But it doesn't have exactly what we're looking for, which is what's the right way to do it.
Sarah Linda, I might suggest that you contact Mount Hope Cemetery. They have a rather large administration building there that you have to check in when you go there. And, they know where every stone is there. It's a historic cemetery, but I would imagine that they've had to deal with this themselves because I know part of Donna's family is interred there, and we've been up there and seen stones knocked about, and I'd be curious to how they deal with it too.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. And also, I think
Well-
Woodlawn Cemetery is the cemetery locally that does the best job of preserving their stones, and
That's what I was just gonna
the way
say,
that
Sarah,
they
Linda,
do
they
it
always
is
look
kill all the
immaculate.
grass around the stones with Roundup, which is not exactly, advisable either from an environmental perspective or from that itself can be damaging to the stones. So I'm not sure that's exactly a best practice, but I think Doug Stone, who is the administrator there, might be a good resource for, industry-wide. It may be that the Cemetery Management Association, whatever the name of that is, has got such a document, and we certainly should be able to get our hands on that. So between Mount
Rick?
Hope and Woodlawn, and maybe there are other ones in the Rochester area that are particularly good on, good practices. But,
So to answer your question, I think this is where it was going. I have not actually been directly involved with, any institution that deals with cemeteries and the upkeep of them. So I don't have any, background information on that. But what I would say is where this conversation is going is reaching out to other local cemeteries or institutions that deal with the preservation of buildings and such.
So we actually discussed this with with Peter Ellison the other day, and he noted that it's kind of, it's a common, as I think you did, Sarah, Linda, it's a common problem, but there are all those best practices, and we need to present kind of our plan to whoever it is that is selected as that mowing contractor. And they just need to be put on notice. When they accept that contract, they need to know that we keep an eye on our cemeteries and that they are responsible for breakage and damage to historic headstones.
Any headstone,
And what's that?
any headstone,
Yeah, thank you.
Not
You're
just
right.
historic.
Yeah, any headstone. And because I can
not
sense
just after they're selected, though, this information has to go into the RFP so that, they can't come back and say, well, we didn't know you had these standards, we're gonna
Right.
charge you more, and then you have to do it all again.
No. Yep,
So-
it has to be right up front when that contract is given. But I don't want to. I think we're all on the same page with that. If you don't mind, Sarah, I want to give you a quick update on the Futterman.
Yeah, I think we've done enough on cemetery, so, yeah, thanks.
So almost everybody here knows what's going on because Richard was there to take the pictures and Sarah Linda was with him and I tagged along. And if you recall, I think I brought it up back in March, April. It was when the Futtermans applied, or I shouldn't say applied, but once they had acquired the property and they approached the town, and the property came up before the Environmental Conservation Board, and everybody looked at the property to determine whether Futtermans could raise the cottage and build anew. So they've long since passed through that, and Richard and Sarah Linda went down there to record it. I got off on other projects and had kind of just put the Futterman cottage out of mind. But back in March, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool if we could move that? So Sarah Linda mentioned it to me when we were down there. And I approached Eli Futterman at, this is 3 Saturdays ago, and asked him if he would be willing to donate the cottage if the town was interested. And he said, yes, he would be willing to donate the structure. So I then, a couple days later, I went straight to the town board because time is of the essence. The Futtermans would like to start construction on their project sometime in the spring. So I approached the town board and I explained to them the situation, and they said, go look into it. So that's really where we're at. I mean, no town board action has been taken. Eli has expressed an interest in donating it. I've been out there with Jared Simpson, who, as you know, is town board. Jared's also works in contracting in the summers. And he and I looked at it and went, yep, it's very sound structure. I went back with Dale Zakatis yesterday. And Dale, as you know, is one of our building inspectors, code enforcement office, and he has a very extensive background in contracting. And Dale has also lived in Canada since 1956 when he was a young lad. And Dale gave it a thumbs up and said, yeah, this is a good candidate. It's very lightweight because, as you know, it has practically no interior decoration, no interior walls. It's just a shell. It's in very good condition. It only has one layer of roof on it. It had a recent rip off of the roof. It dates to 1920. It is a classic example of lake architecture. So I have expressed to several members of the board and staff, I think my job as a town historian, and I know my job as a town historian, is to not only disseminate, but to identify worthy projects that preserve our town's history. My job is not to tell the town that they have to buy this or how much they should spend if they decide to move it, you know, or where they should put it. And I'm glad to work on this effort to a certain point, and then it's going to require, you know, obviously more players within the town if the board decides to act on it. So I'm in early conversations with Marine Blue to see if what they think of the potential of moving that cottage. You can kind of see in the back that there's a bank behind it. It would not be easy in any way to take that cottage out either in pieces or whole and move it up the hill. So it'd just be nearly impossible. You could dismantle it and take it out. But the working thought right now is to take it out via barge and take it down to Ononda, where it could be loaded either whole or in pieces onto a trailer. I think we're talking really realistically that it would be in several pieces and that it would be trailered to whatever location. Personally, I kind of like the Ononda uplands, but I understand that might be problematic if the town decides to go forward with this. I don't need to beat this to death, but you all know that our guiding documents outline that our residents have identified the history and culture of Canandaigua Lake as important, and that they've identified preservation when possible as something they want to do, which is why we have a history team, I guess, right? So this is a great example. It fits within town philosophy and guidance. It fits within the long-range plan of the Parks and Recreation. I just have to finish kind of putting together a tentative plan and let the town board act on it as they desire. So I can try to answer any questions. I'll admit I may not have all the answers yet, but that is where we're at with Futterman Cottage.
Thank you, Lee. I just have one thing to add, which is the question of what do we use it for once it's moved, assuming we could get it to a place that wants it to be there.
Okay.
I was thinking, some of the discussion was about leaving it at Ononda Park, having it become a facility that was, you know, part of the park. And it occurred to me there might be a possibility of combining this with the project that Ray mentioned at our last meeting, which was that the Agriculture Museum is looking for a home. And I think Cody also mentioned that OCHS is looking for storage space. So this building is not ideal for either of those uses for a number of reasons. The Agriculture Museum obviously would do better with a more barn-like building that had a great big overhead door and you could put tractors and whatever else in it. And OCHS probably would like to have something that's closer to your headquarters than on the park. And also that's bigger, because this is not a lot of square feet. It's got a second floor, but the whole first floor is, I don't know, what would you estimate, 15 by 40? So,
Wow, and also temperature controlled, safety, all of that sort of stuff too. But
right,
yeah.
right. So it would not be an inexpensive, I mean, obviously, moving it is not inexpensive, and then rehabbing it to some other use is not inexpensive, unless it's a use that, you know, it's okay to leave the building as it is, which is totally uninsulated. There's no interior drywall. You know, it's exposed structure up and down. It's very rudimentary. So
I mean,
So
you know,
there have
if
been
it were at
conversations-
Ononda, it could function in the same way. There was a little bit of discussion when the Kellogg property was on the table as a possible town facility. There was some idea of taking one of the Kellogg cottages and making it into a little history museum. This could do the same thing at Ononda, rather than at Kellogg's, because it is a good example of what those early cottages were like, the way people lived as in their vacation homes during the I think it's earlier than 1920 myself. I think it's more like 1880s to 1920, somewhere in that
I feel like
range.
that-
But anyway,
Sarah, I feel like that too, but it does say 1920, so that's amongst all of us. Let's agree that it's probably older, but it says 1920.
Sarah Linda, if I
Yeah.
can make a comment, the house as it is, if you start renovating it in order to provide a secure facility for storage for historical documents, that sort of thing, you're going to find that you're going to end up occupying a fair amount of space of that and changing the flavor of the building. I think, and that's going to be costly to do that type of renovation. It might be better to think in terms of just getting a structure, building a structure, prefab or whatever, that will be easily adapted and inexpensively adapted to meet the requirements of storage.
All right.
And to put it somewhere where it is in a secure location where it can be monitored.
Let me jump in, Richard, because I agree. And I've said that to the several people that have looked at it. Once you fur the walls out and put in interior walls, you'll probably lose over 100 square feet just in insulating it.
Well, you lose the whole flavor of the building.
So I think this structure, as I've thought about it, and I'm going to tell you, I have been very careful with everybody I speak to say, it is not my job to imagine it's repurposing. It is my job to say it is a superb example of a lake cottage, and don't look a gift horse in the mouth until you have examined all the possibilities. And so I think that what you're looking at is a seasonal rental property, just like some of our other properties at Ononda, whether it's at Ononda or somewhere else. And the second floor storage is, if it was used for storage, it's not going to be climate controlled. You might, Parks and Rec could use it for storage for shovels. I mean, it's no more insulated than most people's garden sheds, but it has great value if we imagine it just as what it is. It's a cottage. And could you put exhibits in it? You could. You could put durable, wall-mounted, timeline of Canandaigua Lake kind of stuff in it, and still use it as a rental property. Use it as a meeting place. Use it as storage for, the second floor as storage. But OCHS would not I mean, Cody would look at it, and I know Cody, you would just have to say, sorry, I'm a good custodian, I can't put anything there.
Well, so
But
what
people
my
look
thinking
at it
is,
as
and,
what it is.
you know, of course, it's always the statement of if we had unlimited time and unlimited money. My thinking is if it's a historic building, a historic cabin that really depicts what the lifestyle was in the 1920s, 1800s, whatever it may be, I see that as a great opportunity to add it to a place like Onanda. And you know, you can put exhibits in there, but using it primarily as a historic interpretational space. And then, you know, that would be great for creating partnerships, say, for instance, with OCHS, right? Because we could have programming down there. We could have a week-long camp for kids. We could utilize that space. We could bring more people into the park. And, you know, I see that as a win-win. But of course, I have, you know, my priorities, which are OCHS and our money, our time, all of that, and that may not work. But that's kind of how I see this project.
So I'm going to tell you all something that has to remain confidential within the history team for the time being.
This is being
Because I am not ready.
recorded.
Yeah, Lee, this
That's
is
all
on
right.
recording,
That's
so-
all right. I just don't want it to become, you know, I don't want everybody going out and talking about it.
This is being recorded and it's gonna be put on the YouTube channel.
Okay.
So I don't
I'm
talk
gonna
about
say,
it, Lee.
I'm just gonna say it. Okay, we have a donor who will help to defray the cost of moving the cottage. I cannot put a number to that because I don't have a number on the cost. Okay, and because I am not going to, as town historian, exceed my responsibilities and authorities and commit either the history team, myself, or the town to a course of action that the town board hasn't decided to take yet. But I want you to know, and I actually said this, I guess, in the town board meeting. This isn't something where we're going to come back to the town and say, well, you can have it, but it's going to cost you, you know, an arm and a leg. That's not the case. If this costs an arm and a leg, then it probably won't happen. But we already have the potential to offset significantly the expense of moving it. That does not mean that I have acquired the means to identify a location and re-erect it. And again, I would say that is the town board, that is Parks and Recreation. They are the deciding bodies on that, and I would still want to see the assistance and moral support from places like OCHS. But I don't think we need to spend any time today deciding its best use, because as historians, our concern should be it's worthy of preservation, and if we can find the wherewithal, we want to preserve it. And then let the town come together to decide its best purpose. And I think that will also aid in preserving it if they have buy-in, if they have skin in the game. And that's just, those are just my thoughts. Again, I'm not going to to be the bull in the china shop here. Sarah Linda and I and Richard's seen it. We all know it's a really cute cottage. That is a great example. And that's all I think we need to know at this point. So that's my report.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Lee.
Yeah. That's precisely it. Don't get ahead of ourselves.
Well, if this project is gonna happen, it needs to have somebody who is its champion and who's willing to put the time into the specifics of feasibility and cost, not just for moving, but also for the conversion to a usable facility wherever it is.
This is gonna end up
So,
being a full-time job.
Who's that champion? Is that you, Leaf, or?
Yeah, I will champion its preservation so that all of you understand, I mean, that's what I see myself as a champion of its preservation and feasibility. And then go back to the town board and say, you know, you really want to do this because it's, you know, it's what our residents have asked of us. It's what we have said in black and white that we want to do for our town. And here you have a great example. And wouldn't it be good if we did this? And then I think, you know, more feedback from the town, from those other committees, from the board, you know, to move forward with, well, where do we want to put it? What do we think
All
it
right,
might be?
I have an idea here. I was just reading this morning something from the Preservation League of New York State, the same outfit that's given us the grant for the survey. They have an upcoming grant round called Technical Assistance Program, in which they will award up to $4,000, I think, in money for professional services that's in support of preserving historic structures. If we could, and it's on a pretty quick timeline, I think October 10th or so is that's not today, no. Sometime maybe Monday is the date to request an application, and then the 15th of October, that's about a week from today, is the deadline, but it's a pretty simple application. And we could use that to get the money to hire an architect engineer team to advise us about its structure, you know, whether it really is as solid as Jared and Lee think, and it's the minimum requirements for reusing it in a number of the ways that have been discussed here, either as a rental cabin along the same lines as the existing ones at Ononda, or as an interpretive space that would allow, you know, not a place of public assembly, but a place that would allow up to, let's say, 20 to 30 people at a time to be in the building for exhibit purposes. And that would give us some parameters and hopefully also some ballpark costs that can be used to discuss it.
Sarah Linda,
So,
I think this structure is probably going to be best utilized as an interpretive space, because I think once you start thinking in terms of an assembly location, in today's day, you're going to need to put in their air conditioning in order to use it during the summertime and heating during the wintertime. And those are
I
all.
don't think it's suitable for an assembly space. I think
Yeah, I don't think it's
suitable
for assembly
for
space
small
either.
scale residential use, short term, just like the other cabins at Ononda. But I'm not sure that that's even code possible. And I think the exhibit space is also possible, but even that is going to require some compromises, because you'll have to have exit signs, you'll have to have, I don't know if you can have restrooms, because there are other restrooms at Ononda. So, but these things all need professionals to advise us about, and I think there's a source of some money for professionals if you want to take advantage of it, if the town wants to.
And the town board hasn't taken any action or given any direction other than look into it. So I don't think we can apply for a grant unless the town board says, go apply for the grant.
Right.
So that's not something Doug could
Yep.
do on his own authority.
I don't
Don't get
know.
ahead of ourselves.
Well, we can ask him.
Yeah.
Let's not forget too, we have some structures at Ananda Park that are already there that could use a little love and care, and they're very historical. That might meet some of the needs. Not to say this project isn't worthy, but it just made me think of it. You know, like Babcock down at Ononda, it's underutilized, and the second floor. You know, our Parks Department's talking about the future of that building. You know, doing some work on it and being able to use it better. Because right now there's a bathroom in there and a vending machine, and that's about it. But Cody, you were mentioning a place where, you know, you could have kids come for some sort of an activity, but, you know, that's an additional idea too.
Yeah, and I agree with that. You know, I was just speaking up earlier to talk about that specific project, but I mean, I am all about taking a step back and looking at what's already there and how it can be best utilized. And if we can save money by doing that, better utilize our time, all of that sort of stuff. So I agree with that statement as well.
So our code enforcement and town board members that have seen it. And it's, again, I don't want to get granular because we're talking about preserving a specific piece of architecture that is emblematic of Canandaigua Lake. And that
Okay.
should be the first thing that we're concerned with, and then how it gets purposed is a little further down the line. But it could be purposed as a place of assembly, but it would be limited. One, fire codes, you've got to make it ADA compliant by putting, which isn't hard in this particular case. And it would be seasonal. You're not going to use it in December. You're not going to use it in February.
Let's get some
But
numbers
that-
on this
again,
before we go too far, because
Well,
Yeah.
that's what I'm
So-
saying, Richard. That's what I've been saying all along. That's not my job either, to decide how it's purposed, or this committee. I think we need to look at what is our job as historians, which is to preserve it if the town board says, yes, there's enough merit in its historic value and we have enough financial assistance to make that possible. Now we can figure out, then we can take those steps towards where does it go and what does it do?
big
But I
question,
think
Leif,
that-
who's paying for all this? Is this
I
going to
told
be,
you,
an
that's what I
incre-
said.
is this going to be an increase in the tax base? Because then you're going to have pushback from the citizens of the town. So we have to get our numbers in place first before we get too far ahead of ourselves.
That's what I'm doing, Richard, and I would like to add this. That's all great, but we are the custodians of the history. The history team and the town historian are the custodians. My job as town historian is, I'm the memory of the town, all right? You all are the memory of the town. Our first job is to present it. Our job is not to decide fiscal policy and where money is spent. And as I said, there is a significant donor. I'm not talking about a minor amount of money. There is a significant amount, and we do have significant feedback from the town that they want more in their parks. They want to preserve history. This fits within it, and I'm not advocating that we spend a lot of money out of the town coffers. Matter of fact, I've said in the town board meeting, and I'm going to say it again here, I've said it repeatedly, let me be heard. I do not intend that I'm going to walk into the town board and say, you have to spend a significant amount of money to preserve this cottage. But we would also, as historians, be very poor custodians if when we are offered a structure that is historic, if we didn't look into it and see if it's feasible. And that is all I've done, and that's all I can do at this point until I receive more guidance from the town board. So I don't think there's anything I'm trying to sell to you, any of you, or to the town board. And I
Okay,
hope
Leif,
everybody
yeah.
understands that. This is
Thank-
not
thank-
Leif's
Leif.
pet project.
Leif, let's conclude on that note.
right,
Thank you
I
for
just
all
wanna
the
make sure
effort
everybody-
that you put into the thing, and I think we've covered it pretty exhaustively. So is there any other new business that anybody would like to bring up, or can we conclude the meeting? Nope, new business? Okay. Well, the people who are here anyway, do you like this 9 o'clock Thursday meeting time? You want to
Yes.
keep it up this
Yep.
way?
Sounds good.
Right, and we'll continue to have in-person and hybrid, and see who shows up. Maybe we'll go back to mostly Zoom anyway, but thank you all.
Okay.
Everybody have a
will-
great day.
See you next month.
Have a fun day. Okay. Bye-bye.